Hey, yo, what's good, what's good, what's good? Welcome to Reflections of a DJ, the R.O.A.D podcast presented by DJ City and Beat Source. I'm one of your hosts, DJ Crooked. God bless to my brother, DJ Never, Never Forever. We have invaded the Sound Collective studios here in New York, and we have a special guest. He comes from a long lineage of legendary Dutch producers and DJs. He's one of the pioneers and honestly the face of Future House, responsible for shifting the sound of dance music in the mid-2010s to today. He's built one of the most innovative platforms in the dance world with his label Hexagon, which isn't just a label, but it's like a full-blown community, a creative ecosystem that's celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year. Congratulations, by the way. He's produced for names like Rihanna, Ed Sheeran, Justin Bieber, Madonna, Gucci Mane, He's been a regular in the DJ Mag's Top 100, cracking the top 10 multiple years in a row. The man's a visionary, a builder, and still one of the most forward-thinking artists in electronic music. We're honored to have Don Diablo. Thank you, sir.
I love this intro. Yeah, I need this everywhere. It was a mouthful. I mean, to be honest, I am a handful.
So you just came from San Francisco.
Yeah,
like you're
right.
on an hour's sleep.
I'm on an hour's sleep, which usually is enough for me.
Really?
To be here, it was either be here and and not sleep, or sleep and not be here. So I opted for number one to be here.
And this is crazy. You have a big show at Pier 17 at the rooftop.
Yeah.
And it starts in about like 2 hours. You're about to DJ in like 4 hours.
Yeah, I think in 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours.
The thing is, like, it was already sold out a couple of days ago, so that always takes a lot of stress away from me.
Okay.
It's usually, one of the worst things about touring and doing tours is sometimes, when you have all that stress of all the stuff that comes next to making music and being creative. But luckily, this tour has been great. Most shows have been sold out way in advance, right. So I'm excited for New York.
But this is typically how your schedule is? It's just like this, hour sleep, interview right into your DJ set? Is this typical?
Well, to be honest, preferably not, but
yeah.
Also like tomorrow morning I'm playing in Toronto, so actually straight after the show in New York, I think I get 2 hours of sleep. Then we go back to the airport because we're playing early in the afternoon in Toronto, and then actually I fly straight after the Toronto show, I fly back to Amsterdam.
Wow.
Get a haircut, shave the beard, change the wardrobe, and I'm gonna just finish one track in the studio, and then I'm gonna fly to the Middle East. Wow. So yeah, it's a little hectic. It's summer, How
do you prepare like for your DJ sets? It's like almost you have to do that weeks in advance, months in advance. How does that work?
No, honestly, I'm still doing it in the plane. I'm doing it in the hotel room.
Wow.
I'm just constantly thinking about. For me, the most exciting part about DJ sets and doing shows is having new music, trying new stuff out, but also like I read the crowd. Like like yesterday or the day before, I saw people in the crowd. They had signs with like chemicals, or I saw somebody with a monster sign. Right. Sometimes because I only have 90 minutes or 2 hours, and I have hours of music that I created and a lot of new stuff that I haven't released yet that I want to play. So I really always have to make all these tough decisions. But when people they want to hear the big records, I try to make versions that fit within the sound of now, so you can hear like it still has the chorus and the core of the track, but like generally it feels it all has to fit together in one set,
right.
So for me, it's like it has to sound like futuristic, forward thinking, and where where necessary, some of these big records, they still need to have the emotion, because I think music is nostalgia, right? It brings you to a certain place. I always forget about this. Because I'm just excited about doing.
Forget about it, yeah.
No, I'm just excited about doing new things. So I come to a show and then people are like, I never realized, like, oh, maybe someone have saved, they've saved like for a couple of maybe even years to come to one of my shows, and then they want to hear the big records that they've been playing for the last couple of years, and I'm like, I'm just excited to play new music for them. So I think for me that's where the balance lies, to figure out like how to do exciting future thinking, forward thinking music. And at the same time, give people the nostalgia that they crave,
Yeah. Are you noticing a difference in demand in the different cities you go to? Like New York is completely different from San Francisco and obviously from Europe or the Netherlands, right?
100%. Yeah. I think so. I think
like, what do you notice? Like what is New York gravitating to versus like the West Coast, like Cali or San Francisco?
I think like, and West Coast is usually, I play a little bit more swaggy. It's a little bit more like house hip hop with hip hop vocals, and I think for New York, there's it's the same, but there's also that like usually I play extended sets, shows sell like quicker, and because it's like the fan base in New York is crazy, so
It's your biggest
that's-
market, right?
It is. I think it's my biggest market. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the West Coast is big for me too. But New York has been, it's always been crazy. I don't know why. But that also means that not everybody could be at the show because these shows are sold out. So usually that brings a sort of an extra emotional layer, that it makes it a little less random, I guess, because people are really going out consciously buying tickets. They're fans on another level. So you actually then try to look at like, can I play some of these more emotional records sort of in a little sort of block, I'm playing I would say like I play 1 hour longer usually in New York as well.
This event, right, at the rooftop of Pier 17, it's like a pop-up, right? A bit of?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's a venue that it's not something you just randomly walk by,
No.
I think sometimes you have these shows where like you play in these venues where like it's like soft ticket, right? This is really, it's a Live Nation hard ticket show where like usually it's just bands playing there.
Right.
We're doing production. I think that's exciting to me, selling out a show like that because people are very consciously gone online, searched for my name, bought a ticket. And I think that's different than when you go to a venue where people are like, I know it could be a Friday night, people are already going out. Like, oh, Don Diablo, let's go check that out.
Yeah.
I think this is different because it's, it's a different venue, different production. I'm playing longer. It's a sunset set, so
Right.
It's light and then you have the sun and then it's something we go dark, So I think that, calls for a different set.
Wait, are you trying to curate like these new experiences? Because like, I'm surprised you're not at Tomorrowland, like.
This actually, you're right. Actually, now for me, the thing with me is I don't really like repeating. For me, I've played Tomorrowland many years. Even then, at some point, I asked them like, "Hey, can you get me off the main stage?" Because some people were like, "Don's not playing on the main stage. He deserves main stage." I'm like, "No, that's good." Like, I'm actually. I asked him to go like on the main stage. I get to play 1 hour. I'm very dependent on who's playing before me and after me.
Right.
You're playing to a very general crowd. So for me, it was like I asked him like, hey, can I play in the Freedom stage, on the Freedom stage where you have Prids and Anima. We could do a bit more production, visuals, and also very important for me, I get to play 90 minutes instead of 60 minutes because 60 minutes sets stress me out. I'm just sitting there like literally scratching stuff out.
Right.
Like it feels like for a fan, like I feel like guilty. When I walk off stage, I feel dirty. I'm like, oh.
Is it because you're thinking like, how do I jam pack all these like thoughts and and these songs and all these remixes into an hour?
Yeah.
And then, it's just like,
because there's going to be fans, but at the same time, when you
Right.
play at a stage like that, you have the opportunity to play in front of new fans, people who haven't heard of you, but also like, obviously, it's a big stage, so a lot of people are playing the same records. People hear the same music over and over. People get accustomed to a certain style and a certain way of DJing, and there might be a lot of haze and hoes and a lot of countdown stuff. I think doesn't necessarily fit what I'm doing. So I'm trying to find something maybe a little bit more intimate. I like dark, I like to play in the darkness. Right. I'm a futuristic guy,
Right.
I like visuals. I like futuristic settings. But like, that for me was a conscious decision. And sometimes I think it's good, like, even when you're in a relationship, right? It's great when you always want to be together, but it's also good to sometimes just step out of it and, go do your own thing for a couple of days. And then when you see each other again, it's going to be extra special.
Right.
I think, a lot of these cases, a lot of people are doing the same circles. You're there every year. You become like furniture, right? Yeah. So for me, it's like, I don't mind not doing something for 1 year, 2 years, even let's say like Ibiza or Vegas, I could do one of these residencies, but then at the same time, it gives me a little bit of anxiety because
really,
I don't like doing the same thing over and over, going to the same place week after week after week in the same venue. I think life is so short. So I really just want to figure out like, are there like weird cities, weird venues or places I've never played? This could be small, it could be big. For me, that's kind of where it's exciting for me.
Yeah, the timing is kind of crazy because like, look what happened at Tomorrowland with the main stage burning down, and
it was it was crazy because like I got a phone call from my agent and Live Nation saying congratulations, close to 4,000 tickets, New York City solo show, you're sold out, and then 5 minutes later, I see the news like the main stage Tomorrowland is on fire, which is horrible. I'm in this group with all of my Dutch fellow DJs and everybody's they're all going in. It's a little weird because I'm obviously not there, but emotionally I'm there, because Tomorrowland is in my heart. And the people that go there, they're my fans, you know. So it's also like it's heartwarming to see people at these sets on these live streams wearing a Hexagon or a Don Diablo T-shirt.
Right.
You know, even though I'm not there, that you know, that goes a long way for me. And I think, me not being there doesn't mean it's not, you know, I'm not there in thoughts. You know, and I'm actually now extra like, I really would have loved to play that stage because I think
I was going to ask you if you know they had to build some stage in the last 24 hours, and it's like completely stripped down. It's almost like going back to the essence of just the music.
And that's exactly what I love.
Yeah, I was wondering if you wanted to do
that's
that,
the thing.
know?
I'm like, I'm not necessarily about big on elves and like, you know, like magicians and
right.
all this crazy stuff. Like that's not necessarily
the pyro and everything.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why daytime main stage sets for me are a little tricky because, you know, I'm Don Diablo, so I generally like nighttime. I like darkness. I like futuristic stuff. So you know, main stage Tomorrowland would be like sunset or like dark set. You know, a little bit later in the evening. But now I see this stage. They've got this huge LED. I'm like, all right, this is like a giant version of the Freedom Stage. You know. So yeah, I'm a little, and that makes me a little, you know, a little
FOMO,
a little FOMO, but. The thing is, for me, this is what, you know, the industry should be about. It shouldn't be about taking things for granted. Sometimes you got to take a step back, and sometimes you got to, you know, when I don't do something for a while and then go back to it, I'm just extra hyped. I'm extra excited to be back, and I think, I think more people should do that. Now, also for me, another reason for me to sometimes take a step back. There's two reasons. Sometimes it's just general anxiety, you know, or the other thing is for me is like. Give someone else a chance, you know. Like there's so much young talent out there.
Right.
Let me not play the main stage this year, and give some other young talent the opportunity to play there. Because I think sometimes the circulation is small. You know, it's harder for young DJs to get in there. It's always the same names. So for me, I like to do different things and sometimes just, you know, bob out so other people get a chance to do it.
Right.
Yo, roadies and roadies for life. You already know that we rock heavy with DJ City. It's our go-to record pool to download the latest music, edits, and remixes for our DJ sets. So now, Road listeners can join DJ City for only $10.
$10?
Only $10. That's almost 70% off the first month. Make sure you scan the QR code or click the link in the description or go to djcity.com/offer/road to jump on this great deal.
You mentioned you were kind of like, you know, you're talking to your fellow, like, you know, Dutch DJs and producers and like talking about the Tomorrowland. Are you guys a pretty tight community, like with the whole Dutch scene?
Actually, I'm a spectator.
How do you mean? I mean, because like in dance music, like some of the biggest names and producers, obviously from the Netherlands, and you know, all these Dutch producers, Tiesto, you know, Afrojack, Chucky, Hardwell, Martin Garrix. Like,
no, I mean we're you know, we're all friendly. You know,
right.
I think that's the main thing. And one like let's say an Armin. You know, I go to dinner. I do dinners with Armin. We're good friends.
Yeah.
You know, so there's different levels. Like let's say Martin, for instance, he invited me to support him at his LA shows. They were already sold out. It's just like, you want to come by and just. So there's a different.
So you guys are like a tight knit community.
Yeah, I think it's I think the one thing for me, I have always felt as an outcast because. Really? I guess musically, I am different. And sometimes even my colleagues, they're like, Don is a weirdo. You know, they don't always get what I'm doing. I'm always like trying to stay ahead of the curve, like sonically, musically, creatively, which sometimes could be a little bit confusing, or even like, you know, what you don't know sometimes feels a little scary. You know, like I think sometimes people are like, you know, what's Don going to do? What is he doing? You know, I think.
Did that start early on, like kind of when the Dirty Dutch scene was hitting and you were kind of still figuring out what you wanted to do and where you wanted to sound, what you wanted to sound like, right?
100%. I think I've always been, I mean, I started out like, in rock bands, and then I started producing hip hop, and then I think I was 13. I was just thrusted into this basement producing for other people for a couple of years. And I had this Don Diablo project, which was my project. But at the same time, I think I put out like 60 records at some point when I was 14. And then my mom was like, how does this work? Do you get like paperwork or like contracts or maybe like a statement, like how many records you've sold, or how does this work? Like I told her, well, I got like 3,000 euros, you know, like last year. So I'm like, and they're putting my music out. Like I'm working with these artists. Sometimes I wouldn't even see the artist. They'd just be like, make a trance record, make a gabba record, make a chemical beats record, right? So I'm just doing it, and I'm just like, oh, you want to release this? This is great, you know. Only later on, kind of figuring out like, this is kind of weird, and I'm not getting any royalties or nothing, you know.
You got like completely taken advantage of. It was almost like child labor sweatshop for production, right?
In a way, it was. Yeah, this was way before all. You know, it was a different industry because there wasn't really any internet. You know, I'm 45, so this is like 33 years ago.
You were 14 years old, and
Yeah.
you're mass producing all these tracks and not getting paid anything. Huh?
I had no idea what was going on until I was like 15 years old. Someone told me like, hey, there's this record called Casa del Diablo that I put out as Don Diablo. I had multiple names. That I used, but this particular project kind of took off. So I had a booking request to play somewhere in the UK. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. But I weighed about like, I would say 70 pounds more than I do now. So I was like, and my hair was like, you know, almost touching my bum. I hadn't gone to the hairdresser, and I think I had maybe like 5 years.
You were like a complete studio rat, right?
100%, like completely pale. So for me, it was like I got that invitation, and then somebody sent me a picture. I was like, oh shit, that's me, because I actually hadn't looked in a mirror. I'm the type of guy like when you don't look at it. It's not there. You know, I try to avoid confrontation sometimes. So that the whole thing was, I'm not looking in the mirror. I can't judge myself. You know, that was the same thing with music. For me, I never listened back to the music I made. I just made it, gave it to the you know, the suits. They did whatever they did with it. But for me, this is what I try to, you know, make young producers understand. It's really about the process. It's really about having fun. And nowadays, you make the song, and then it's all about like trying to market it. You're looking at everything else that's happening around you. You're looking at numbers. You're looking at a lot of anxiety, right? For me, it was just like, oh, I'm just pressing buttons, moving mouses, and touching keyboards, twisting knobs, and having fun. I think that essentially is what music should be. It should be a hobby, right? That's how it starts. I think a lot of kids out there, they take it too seriously from the start. I think the main thing is, it's a hobby, you know.
They're thinking too far ahead.
You're thinking too far. You're thinking about, you know, when I went, like I was a BMXer, you know, and I did this for fun. I wasn't thinking about becoming a pro BMXer.
Right.
Maybe I could like win a local competition. I also used to play checkers. At some point, I competed in national championships. So, but I wasn't like thinking about becoming a professional checker player. I just had all these little books, and I like the concept of training my brain. That actually helped with making music, because a lot of making music it's also about making a lot of decisions and thinking ahead. It's almost like playing checkers. But at the same time, I'm happy that I was a BMXer, because this allowed me to be physically fit, you know, and to fly around the world, because we competed like European Championships, World Championships. I was always last. So this actually also prepared me for being a loser, you know, the first part of my career, and having those rejections and people say no, and nobody giving me any recognition. So I think that, you know, that was an early lesson for me.
Yeah. Some of your early aliases when you were 14 or 15 was what? Dave Mitchell?
Damn, I can't believe you know that.
The Raven?
Yeah.
Batteries Not Included?
Yeah.
Skip Donner?
Yeah. Chemical Beats.
What were all these aliases? Like, what came out of this? What was the thinking behind this at such a young age?
The fun part is that this is pre-Spotify, pre-iTunes, right? So it's all that I have them on a vinyl somewhere. The idea was, you know, some of these were attached to other artists. Some of these were just records that they weren't putting out, and I was like, let me put them out under another name. So there would be a trance alias, Dave Mitchell. The thing is, I'm a 13, 14-year-old kid from a small village in the Netherlands, you know. That's not sexy.
Right.
You know, so I was like, let me come up with an alias, because back then you could do that. People weren't verifying stuff on the internet. You were just like, Dave Mitchell, he's like 28 years old, 30 years old. He's from Chicago or Detroit. I said something like that on the vinyl.
Right. At
some point I ended up I had this discussion actually, because I was making music, like a lot of gabber, a lot of music that, I think electronic music is divided in levels of credibility, right? So it starts like techno, the people in like black, outfits and hair is like to the side and
Yeah.
all this, and then below, like the lower you go, at some point you go like hardstyle and hardcore. That's kind of where I started in the hardcore, right? So a lot of my friends were into techno, so they were like, you make all that hardcore bullshit. We are the elite, we are techno. So at some point for me it was like, okay, who are your favorite techno artists? They were like Carl Cox, Laurent Garnier. So I said, okay. I started listening to some of these compilations, became a big Laurent Garnier fan, and I had this track that I made in a couple of hours, and I put it out as Dave Mitchell, and ended up on a Laurent Garnier compilation. So my friends came in, I put the compilation on, and I played and they were like, oh, this is dope. Yeah, oh man. Unfortunately, it's not the type of stuff you do or are creatively or technically capable of, but
right.
And I was like, guess what? That's actually my record, And they were, and I was like, I made that in like a couple of hours for fun. So I think this is the thing. I think within electronic music, we should be respecting each other and not, thinking in all of these sort of boxes.
Right.
And I think back then, that was what it was. One of my first tours to Australia was like with Danny Tenaglia, Carl Cox, Pendulum, Dizzy Rascal, but also I think we even had Kesha on tour,
Right.
That was a lot of fun for me because I felt accepted, I felt like at some point I was emceeing during a Carl Cox set. He was crowd surfing during my set.
Amazing.
Danny Tenaglia was in the booth on the mic. This is crazy, like that would never happen now. Like we have all these genres, it's all box stuff. We have all these different stages and, there's all different levels of coolness. And even now, sometimes I have to like fight to be on this lineup, or there's always that thing like, are you house, are you underground, are you EDM, or what are you? Like sometimes you're associated with the artist that you're performing with, right? And I'm like, I don't know, I just make electronic music. That's what I do, Sometimes it's left, sometimes it's right, but it always has that, I would say there's always that, that left field appeal to it,
Right. So you loved the fact that there were no like subgenre, there were no borderlines of
Love
anything.
that. Yeah, I love that.
And it must have been so validating, right? To be amongst these legends and being around them. It's kind of like, well, was that kind of around the turning point where you started figuring out what you wanted to do? Sonically?
I think like the early years were important to me because I was able to figure out like, okay, how do I make a hip hop beat? How do I make a gabber or hardstyle kick? How do I sonically do these things? And then, I think also when you start out working with hardware, everything, after that is a little easier because at the time I started with an Atari, had to send all these MIDI signals, and then basically try to figure out how to work on a Kai sampler, a drum computer, all these, reverb, sends, delays, push it all through one giant mixer,
right.
And then do all the EQing yourself by hand, and then you record it on a DAT tape.
This is like the Pro Tools M-Box era kind of?
Yeah. Well, yes, that's how I started, right? So at the shift to when you were actually able to do things, in the box and even, do all these things with audio and that just blew my mind. Actually, it's the same as the transition from vinyl to CD. Revolutionary, because when I walked around with all these vinyls on my back, I remember coming home one day from a show in Japan and I took my shirt off and I had all these blood marks from left to right on my shoulders.
Right.
Because I had like a lot of kilos on my shoulders and they were like blood. I had blood on my shoulders, so that then now I'm just traveling out with my USB. It's just insane. Like I love it, but I think I'm actually blessed because I come from an era where it was very hard to make music. You had to buy a lot of, outboard gear. You had to understand. You had to read a lot of manuals.
Right.
You didn't have any YouTube tutorials, and then music touring was hard because it was hard to promote yourself. There wasn't any internet, and also like you had to be at home and think about like, I'm gonna play in Brazil tomorrow. I'm now going through my vinyl collection. I'm only bringing 80 vinyls with me. I already have to make this selection at home. I have no idea what these guys are doing.
Yeah.
So you had to always make all these decisions. Now you just bring hundreds of records, on your USB, and you can just also like, when you make something new, you can just easily test it out. Back then, you had to go to to the vinyl plant,
Right.
and you had to
Get a
press it on,
pressing, right.
pressing on and then every time you played the record, the quality became less, right?
Right.
So you're looking at this event, you're like, is this worthy of now me playing my lacquer, this white label, and then it's sounding worse than the next show I'm doing,
Right.
So you always have to make all of these decisions, like sometimes you're like, I had all these nightmares of my record ending while I was looking through my final suitcase. I'm like, oh shit, the record's gonna end, or the needle skipping. All that is much better now. So I think a lot of people are like nostalgic about everything was better back then. I don't believe that's true.
Hey, yo, what's good? This is the R.O.A.D podcast, Reflections of a DJ. We're here in New York City, and we have invaded the Sound Collective. Now, I want to explain what the Sound Collective is. I got my man Lefty from the Sound Collective here. Lefty, thank you for having us and hosting this beautiful studio for us. Exactly what is the Sound Collective here in New York?
Modern, state-of-the-art facility with tons of production gear. And one side of it is you can be a member and you can come here and pay monthly to use the rooms and the gear and sign out time and our space. We have a state-of-the-art studio. We have all these production stations, DJ stations, instrument practicing rooms and such like that.
And you also teach. You have classes and sessions, right?
We have intensive programs, short-term programs that people can come and take Saturday classes on DJing, production.
There's kind of a community building within where there's DJs, producers, musicians.
Up and coming producers, people honing their craft and learning, and DJs and all these things. And they come here and practice, and we have all the new gear, so they come and check that out and get familiar. And a lot of DJs will come in from out of town, be like, let me get a day pass so I can just get a refresh on the 3000s and the V10.
And what's great is that a lot of our guests, everyone from Clark Kent to the technician to Camilo, they come in here and they're just like, holy shit.
You want to play with all the gear, man? Yeah.
I didn't even realize this, but you guys have studio spaces where people can do live streams and they can do their Twitch streams here.
Yep. We got a whole green screen set up already, multicam, full on switcher. We also do a lot of events here. We're bringing a lot of outside talent, organizations. We got a big event coming up with DJ City, Beat Source, and Serato.
That's part of our family.
Yeah. We did a big one last year with them. We got another one coming up.
For our listeners, is there any way we could hook them up with a deal, or if they put in a R.O.A.D podcast code?
Yeah, tell me about it. What else do you have in vision for this deal? It sounds like we're well on our way. Why don't you tell them?
You're working with us where they can type in a code for R.O.A.D.
Yep.
And they'll get a month free, right?
Yeah, on our online platform. We have a whole online platform with masterclass style education.
Nice.
Different categories and everything, instruments, drums. And then we have these things that we're launching right now called Pro Paths. So you can choose, if you're a producer, you can take the Ableton Pro Path, the Logic Pro Path, Serato Studio. Goes through a wide variety of knowledge besides just stuff in that skill set and discipline.
So our R.O.A.D listeners, if you're in New York, you can check out their facility. You can do a day pass, a week pass, a monthly pass. You can check out their site. You have access to all the education online.
Soundcollective.com. We also have a YouTube channel that has some of our content from the educational courses, and all of our events are live streamed and put up there.
I hope we can come back here and use your facilities again.
Looking forward to it.
Shout out to Lefty and the Sound Collective. Thank you so much. Yeah. Did you start as a DJ first or producer first?
Definitely a producer. Yeah.
Wow.
I had this little era where I played, and then I think I played for 2-3 years, and just playing in empty rooms and nobody caring about me. So I was like, DJing is not for me. I tried that. I think from age 15.
So you started as a producer. You did some shows early on, and you were like, I'm just going to focus on producing.
Well, yeah, I did shows because I was a promoter first. I started. This is the thing. I needed money. I wasn't making money from the music,
right,
and I needed to buy more gear. So I started throwing events, and on these events, I would program myself. Then I would DJ, and then I would just play some of the neighboring events. At some point, I started touring a little bit more. Actually, I started touring more abroad than actually in my own country. I had my breakthrough internationally way before I broke through in my own country. Really? They were like, who's this guy from Holland who's flying around the world? But I think the main thing was I didn't enjoy the graft, the grind of playing these empty rooms all of the time. So I was just into making music. And at some point I had, I think the real breakthrough came, I would say, right after I moved to London. I signed this giant record deal with Columbia Records. I just got this apartment in London. I was sitting down on these boxes. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. This time I'm gonna do it. Because I had so many disappointments in the industry. And as I sat down on these boxes, about to unbox all my gear, set up my studio, my mom called me, and she said, "Hey, sit down. Dad's very ill." So I had to go back to the Netherlands, spend more time with my family. Not long after that, I had this conversation with my father. He's like, I'm not going to be here much longer. We're talking weeks. So then my whole mindset shifted. You know, I was like, I got to stop messing around. I got to do this for my father. I just had this sort of divine sort of, you know, intervention where usually I come from a lineage of like a family where everything was super avant-garde. You know, I was named after Captain Beefheart, Don Van Fleet. He was an artist. He was in all these crazy bands. He was working with Frank Zappa. They made these 12-minute songs with 1,800 tempo changes. Like all this was crazy. So for me, I wasn't making music with a chorus or anything repeating. I was just doing weird stuff. So then I had this conversation with my dad, and he looked at me and said, listen, Don, like, I'm already proud of you. You know, you don't have to be the weirdest, most out there guy. You can be successful and still be creative, still be respected, you know? And I'm already proud of you. You know, I'm going to be watching from above. And I said to my dad, like, I'm going to take this and bundle it, and I'm finally going to be successful. And I think I was 35 years old, you know?
Wow.
So it was either quitting or it was that. And then I just wrote this song in the hallway on this little xylophone, actually. Wrote this little melody while my dad was in the hospital bed. I took that, wrote a song around it together with JP Cooper. That song became the anthem for Stand Up Against Cancer in my country. Oh, wow. It went top 10. All of a sudden, people saw me as a human. From there on, I just got inspired. I got a little bit more, I became a little bit more outgoing. I went outside a little bit more. There weren't really any pictures of me at that time. If you look up on the internet. And I think from there on, I was like, I started to realize how valuable time is. It's the most valuable thing we had. So I made a trilogy, Back in Time, Anytime, Nighttime. And the idea was to make this music that was very futuristic, just in case I would pass away the next day. And, you know, I wouldn't be able to show my vision of the sort of the future of music and electronic music. So I think that kind of became my version of Future House, which was more melodic, more emotional. And I think that was my break. These 3 records went top 10 on Beatport.
Right.
And I'd never had a big record on Beatport. And from there on, I grew in. I think I was already #1 biggest selling house music artist on Beatport for maybe 2 years in a row, and I still didn't have any shows. Really? Honestly, I was just sitting in my underwear, watching the Tomorrowland live stream, watching the EDC and Ultra live streams, people just playing my records. Like, you know, I had, I think at some point I was #1, 1,001 track list, #1 producer that year. But it took a long time for people to realize, to put the records together. This is Don Diablo, it's this guy. So, you know, this is his sound. I think that's also important to remember. I think sometimes on my label, I get people like, hey, I've got a record that's like, it's number 12 now in the top 10 progressive house on Beatport. Where are the shows, you know? I try to explain to them like, oh, I had maybe like 12 #1 on the main charts, you know, and I didn't have any bookings, you know? So I think patience, you know, and just being humble all the time. And also like realizing that success is going to come and it's going to go. Just, you know, but I think the main thing is you have to try to leave a legacy and have to find a way to create a sound that's yours. I think whatever I do, whatever genre I'm in, whether it's drum and bass or house or pop, or whether I'm working by myself or with someone else in the studio, I think people can always recognize that Don Diablo touch. You know, that's where I sort of really started drawing that out. Like, okay, there's the piano, there's the vocoders, that's the sound design, the synth patches, how I design that. It makes me comfortable because I hate doing sessions, you know. But also making music becomes very lonely. You know, I've been in this room like from age 12, I guess, to like 35, 36, 37, almost 25 years just by myself, just looking at these walls, thinking to myself, is this good enough to put out? You know, am I good enough to be here? And I think that, you know, around that era, I started to enjoy the idea of like getting different inputs, working in a different way from what, you know, the way I've always used to work before.
Yeah. Why do you think your dad felt the need to tell you something like that? Like he's proud and you don't have to, you know, be avant-garde. Were you going through something at that time that your dad was familiar with? Did he see something that you were going through and wanted to put you at ease, or
I think, I mean, there's, I grew up with my brother who's, suffering from severe depression. We've always had a lot of, went through a lot of these different clinics, a lot of medication, trying to figure out what our place was on this planet. I have one brother, I have two older brothers. One is like happy-go-lucky, very successful businessman.
Yeah.
And then there was us. I was the third guy, like, I had two brothers. One is handsome, he's successful, he's business-minded. Then my middle brother, he's like super creative, super musically gifted. And then there was Don, so I felt like I didn't have a place in this world.
Right. There was all this pressure, though.
There was a lot of pressure,
yourself,
exactly.
Right?
So I felt like there wasn't really a reason for me to exist for a long time,
Wow.
So I've always put everything at stake.
And your father saw that, right?
My father saw that, and I think he, I mean, my parents were very worried. Like, I was never around girls. I didn't think they could even grasp like what my preferences were, like from food to sexually. He doesn't eat, he doesn't go out. Like, what is he into? Like, I think he's just into staying inside of his room. I stayed most of my, my youth, all of my youth, I stayed inside. I didn't have any friends. My only friend was the computer,
So you're very much an introvert. Right?
I think. So I really had to teach myself to go. I think once I created this Don Diablo moniker, Don Diablo to me is a superhero type guy, wears this futuristic outfit. He goes on stage. He becomes it's like Clark Kent, Superman, like it's Bruce Wayne, Batman.
Interesting.
For me, that's kind of how I get the energy and the power to become this different person. But then I go back into my room and I'm like, I'm making notes and I'm already like, opening a door, trying to figure out like, okay, what can I change here? What can I change there? Making the sets better. I'm always like punishing myself, I would say.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to enjoy success. There's always that feeling of like, I mean, there's a massive form of imposter syndrome. It came from the way I grew up, but also came from where I grew up. It also comes from being Dutch. It also comes from like the interactions with my colleagues, not always being accepted, not always being understood. Maybe not even within my family, within my friends, in between my peers in my country.
Right.
Like, I've never won a prize in my country. I've been in the top 10 for, like you said, like almost 10 years. But I've never like most of these guys have just basically they have a cabinet full, with prizes. So for me, I felt like I never felt home anywhere. I never felt accepted anywhere. Only by my fans. I think I don't even call them fans. I call them, family, because
all your Hexagonians.
Yeah. I'm actually now designing a Don Diablo logo because there's never been a Don Diablo logo because I don't want to feed into the ego like that. Like, I don't want people to walk around with a Don Diablo shirt. I've never had my face on a shirt like a rock band or a rapper, because I feel I'm trying to create something it's about you. It's about the fan. It's about experiencing something that is more than just listening to a record. It's about feeling like you are a part of something, right?
Well, you put that label first, the Hexagon label first, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of built a community, and that was first. So you didn't feel the need to like push the Don Diablo brand as much?
Yeah. And I think also that, again, it's that whole idea of like, I don't want to be at the forefront like that. I want.
Why is that? It's like, because you feel that Don Diablo is like an alter ego?
Yeah.
Do you feel like it properly represents who you are? Or do you just feel it as it's like this kind of alter ego that you have to kind of feed?
There's just millions of thoughts going through my mind every day.
Right.
Like sometimes I look at Don Diablo, I look at me, and it's literally I hate it. I'm like
You do?
I would hate that guy. Like, it's for me. I'm always thinking about artistically, musically. Sometimes I'm somewhere. I go to an event, like, I don't know. I would go to, like, the other day I was invited by Solomon and his crew to come to his event, and I always feel like very small. I'm like, and then my friends are like, Don, you're making a record with the Chemical Brothers. You just did a record with Major Lazer. You're working with, like Jamiroquai, like Nelly Furtado, like they're doing all this crazy stuff, like.
Yeah.
And when I walked there, like that, it's funny because the promoter's like, you were the guy people wanted to take pictures with. There's like a dozen DJs walking around here in the VIP. So that sometimes, you know, it makes me feel like I just feel like a small kid every time I walk into a room somewhere. That's the way I feel. So I think I'm trying to the thing is, I did realize when I put a person, because I've been making music for so many years,
right,
without it having a real project or a person connected to it. I think once I started making Don Diablo a real person and I'm being honest about me, I think the reason why I have fans that have like tattoos on their neck or giant tattoos on their back is because it's not about raving. It's not about, you know, just about music. It's really about also being very honest, you know, and a lot of my songs, especially like when I really came up, they're about my father. They're about life. They're about anxiety. They're about trying to figure out who you are. It's about not being able to sustain a relationship because you don't feel like you're good enough. So I think all of these things are relatable, but when you look from the outside in, you'll be like, you know, this is you know, it's a guy playing records, pushing buttons. Generally, people like right now, I'm in the world of fine art as well, right? So I think there's a perception. You know, it's crazy for me to have my work in between a Banksy and a Picasso, right? At fairs like Art Basel and to have my work displayed in the harbor of Hong Kong, that's like, that actually gave me confidence on another level. Because I think a lot of people look down on DJs as sort of like, you know, it's you have people that are in classical orchestra, it's seen as more highbrow art, but being a DJ or a producer, it's very, sometimes just mumble jumble. They're like, what are you doing in that booth? Or even making music, a lot of like, people are like how, like you press a button and the music comes out, right? That's how you do it. Not knowing that every day of my life since age 12, every sound, every conversation, every piece of color, every movie, every piece of influence, every emotion has gone through my body, and I've tried to translate that into something sonically and emotionally. I think, you know, you don't really get to talk. You don't really get to have the conversation like this, honestly, you know? Yeah. It's really just pretty basic, generally. Yeah. I think people don't perceive electronic artists as, you know, as they would a band. They would be going talking about the lyrics. It's more of a, you know, it's a different type of, they view it differently.
What's good, everyone? This is Neek from Reflections of a DJ, the R.O.A.D podcast. Whether you're just discovering the R.O.A.D podcast or a day one listener, if you've been loving the content or want more, here's your chance to support the pod. Get closer to the action and unlock exclusive content by joining our Patreon. This is for loyal listeners who want early access to new episodes 3 or 4 weeks ahead, your name in the credits of every video episode, and access to our exclusive R.O.A.D edit packs. Now, for the hardcore supporters, we've got our Tier 2 R.O.A.D for Life subscription for just $10 a month. This is an all-in package. You'll get everything from Tier 1 plus a monthly bonus episode, early access to our R.O.A.D 10 and R.O.A.D Talk interviews, behind-the-scenes content, our In the Crate series, along with exclusive unreleased content. This is your chance to support the podcast and get more of what you love. Join the family today at patreon.com/R.O.A.D podcast. Check the link in our descriptions. We appreciate you. Let's keep this journey going.
So it's like producing and creating the art, producing the music. Is that cathartic and therapeutic for you versus like performing and DJing? Is there more anxiety with the performance?
Can be.
But the actual like production and the creating of the music, that's really a little bit more of an extension of you inside, right?
I mean, it depends. Like writing the music, yes. Sometimes producing it can become very frustrating. Because I used to produce and then I used to focus more on the technical part, and then I would be, you know, the song would get lost, you know. So now it's like I try to focus on creating the melodies, the lyrics, the idea, or like where the direction I want to go into, and then I go, you know. And sometimes, you shouldn't already be producing too much while you're writing music. That's the one thing I've learned, you know. You can always,
right.
And also like, you don't have to do it alone. That, like, I think there was that whole era, like when I grew up, like that was the code. You do it by yourself, you know. It's like a punishment, like a torture almost. Like you have to figure, like even if this record's gonna take me 3 months to crack the code,
There's like a pride and an ego.
No band has that ego. Like, you know, like you just want to make the best record. I mean, I think Fred again is a good example. You know, the way he interacts with people, the way he works with other producers. He's not afraid, you know, like to go through a different process than all of us, you know, have been doing. And he's insanely creative, insanely talented, but he's also not afraid of working with other people that have similar talent, you know?
Yeah.
And I find that very inspiring, you know, because I think sometimes this industry can be a little toxic. It's like, oh, you worked, sometimes you would basically write the record, then you would arrange it, you would produce it, you would engineer it, then sometimes you would do the mix down together with someone else, and people are like, oh shit, you know, like he didn't do the mix down all by himself. I'm like, guys, like there were a lot of steps that I went through, you know, to create this song. Like right now, I'm at a point where I think it's good to like, I'm inspired by people like Fred, like to see him do this, and and for myself as well, I find like working together now is the last years. It's allowed me to be more creative, to be more me. Weirdly enough, right? And it's more fun. Because it's dark, you know, like producing like could get very dark. I used to sit there, I worked on some of these records for 2 years, and they come out and they flop. So your mind explodes. Or sometimes you make a record. It's not about knowing that you can do it. I mean, I know I can do it. That's fine. Like I've been doing it for years. But I think it's the process becomes more fun. It's less lonely, you know? And I think it also gives you a certain time pressure, because you could work on a record for years, and then you send it to the A&R, you get a remark, and it feels like it's like a dagger in the heart. Like, like listen, I listen every little EQ, every volume setting, everything, every little piece of sound design has been weighed out.
It's so meticulous, right?
It's so meticulous. I've thought about, but then it's like it becomes so personal, and so like it's just scary. You know, it's just psychotic. Like it's not healthy. So I think, going back, it's the same with doing shows. Like, you know, I used to not want to do shows because my brain was like, no, it needs to blow like Kraftwerk out of the water. It needs to blow Daft Punk out of the water. Now I'm like, let me just go out there and just play some records first and make people happy. And in the meantime, my brain is still like, you know, that was okay, it was good, but wasn't fucking mind blowing. But for some people it was, you know? And I think that's the one thing you have to accept. But for me, my brain just constantly, even with making art, you know, I'm always like, the next piece I'm working on, I've been working on it for 2 years. And it's been a secret, you know? I've been working on with a group of scientists, a group of a test lab in UK that I set up. It's a whole thing. And sometimes my people around me are like, Don, do you even know, like, is this ever going to see the day of light? I don't know. There's a lot of things that I do. I think the main thing is whatever you put out there is only a fraction of what you actually do. And in my case, at least, right? There's hundreds of songs. There are like hundreds of ideas that I've had, musically, visually, technically, you know, that I've created. Sometimes I've just created, you know, things that I use to make my music that people don't know about. And I think that's how I started making art, right? I had these things in my house that I created because I was like, that's expensive to have like a designer ping pong table, you know, with lights in it. It's $100K. Let me just design that myself. That's kind of how I started designing furniture, designing the inside of my studios, and then from there on, started making art. And then at some point, it was like, do you sell this? Again, I think that's how you start. You start making music because it's fun. And then at some point, someone will say, this is nice. You should maybe put it out. Not like, I'm making music because it should be put out. I'm making music because I want to rise in the Beatport charts and I want to play it at a festival. I want to play at Tomorrowland one day. No, you should be making music because you want to be creative. It should be an I think I would advise. I think that's also where we're going to in the future. People are afraid of AI because it's going to make everything easier. But at the same time, it's going to revolutionize the fact that people that don't have the financial means or even sometimes, you know, the time to put all this effort in. I think making music is therapeutic. And I think in the future, people, you know, it will be easier for people to have access to tools and financial means are no longer a factor in being creative and making music. It's going to basically make everything a lot more fair, I would say.
So you don't see AI as like a cancer to like human creativity?
No, I mean, the thing...
a lot of people see it that way,
The name Diablo comes from the fact, like, when I started out, I saw this documentary of a lady. She was yelling, this is a Spanish lady, Mexican lady, I think, in front of this venue where they were playing electronic music at the time in the 90s. And she was like, Diablo, Diablo. Like, music from computers, but that was evil, So that, to me, going back to that, they were like, oh, you're making music with machines that, you're not touching a guitar or a traditional piano. So I think we're going around in circles every single time that's going to happen. I think you can there's always going to be a human element, right? With anything that we do, it's when we got the iPhone or, these cameras, the phones with the cameras, photographers were like, now, damn, you can just put on a filter. All of a sudden you have these amazing pictures, but that doesn't make you a photographer.
Right.
It allows you to make better pictures, with your family. I think that's just technological advancement, but it will also show the people that are making music with AI, solely AI, through a prompt. It's tough, to make actual good music with heart and soul. And I think at the end of the day, yes, the technical aspect will become easier, but the main thing is you're going to have to put your heart into it. You're going to have to attach yourself to it. You have to give it an emotion, give it a story. I think at the end of the day, that's what people will latch on to. It's not just about the technical part. I think especially in our scene, we're very focused on that part. I think that will be, it will be easier for people. But I think the main thing is you have to tell a story. You have to be a storyteller.
How do you consider the downside of AI, where it's kind of like maybe eliminating all these jobs and like specialists in certain fields? That's the biggest worry about AI right now, that it's going to eliminate all these specialists and people who have dedicated decades or years into crafts and like musicianship or artistry,
I mean, I look at it from two sides, at one point I'm like, wow, this is exciting because you can run a song literally through a plugin and it will just analyze it and you just basically do an A/B and it will literally just mix the record down for you and it sounds solid. Yeah. That was shocking to me. I'm like, it's gonna save me a lot of time, and I can ignore it. Even like, you insert a sound, and synth plant will, emulate that sound, and you can use it. It's a synthesized sound that you can use in your song now without actually having to use the sample. It will allow you to separate stems. It will allow you to create new types of sounds. It will also, like, I think, we're looking at electronic music, right? All the demos I get, they're using they're using vocal loops from Splice. Is that more creative than creating your own vocal loops, than creating your own melodies, sounds, drums with AI?
Yeah.
Just grabbing it from a platform, something that another human has created for you. Is that more creative than working together with an AI, creating something unique? Maybe, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I would say, the amount of demos that I get with the same splice loop, generally we were already heading into a certain direction of when I started, I have to get into studio with a singer. I'd have to write these lyrics, then I'd have to record them. I'd have to stack these vocals, mix it, engineer it, and then I'd have an a cappella. Nowadays, I just go on Splice, and there's a lot of good stuff there. There's big records, right? Like, you hear these records, you're like, oh, this is a smash. So I think we are already there. Things have become more easy. Like, we're already working in the box. So we have these plugins that are like so convenient. Like, when I started out with all the hardware, it was hard. I had an Akai sampler. We could put like 1 MB on a floppy.
Right.
I had like a box with like floppies that I would stick in. And there were all these MIDI signals and mixing it down and sending a DAT tape. The DAT tape would get lost somewhere in the mail. And I'm like, holy shit. What do you mean? There's 2 weeks you didn't get my record? So I think there's all these challenges that we've overcome. We went from vinyl to CD, then we went to MP3 to USB. Like, I think there's all these different things we went through, and I think it's scary. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely scary. I'm scared, but I think it's really, you have to adapt to the times. You have to figure out, like, how can we make AI human? how can we use it for human process?
Right.
I think at the end of the day, it's all about heart. Again, it's about telling stories. It's not just about making things easier technically. I would say, honestly, that's making the world more humane. Because for me,
Really?
as a producer, like, if I had these tools that I had now, I would have actually had a private life. I probably would have had kids, I would have saved so much time. Like, honestly, like doing this, the way that my process right now, it allows me to do so many things by myself, very fast, very creatively. That would have cost me like a lot of time, sweat, blood, tears, effort, frustration, anxiety.
Yeah.
That would have been saved from that. I think that is a beautiful thing. You can actually see it as something positive. It will allow you to maybe go out, have a walk in the park, maybe take your mom out to dinner, maybe have an actual real life relationship, not just, being stuck in these four walls.
Yeah. So you're actively using AI, and like you have a new single, "The Devil Works Hard," and I love that it's called "The Devil Works Hard." Were you?
But
using,
the DJ works harder.
the DJ works harder. It's a great single, by the way. And did you use AI in producing this? Like, was it implementing anything from like the demo?
I think generally right now I am using a lot of AI in creating vocals, because I can actually make these vocals sound more authentic sometimes.
Like a reference track or the actual vocals?
Right now I'm just into like a couple of new records that I've been making. I just basically, in this case it was actually Tseba who came with the idea, with the vocal. So he sent me, the label sent me a rough demo. So I ended up, taking it from there. But a lot of these, the funny thing was it sounds like I'm on the same sort of level there, because a lot of records I have coming up, they've got that sort of 90s type, vocal that feels a little throwback, but it feels fresh. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to find these acapellas, and then you have to go and clear it through these record labels, publishing, master, all this crazy stuff. I think right now it allows you to be more creative, but also while maintaining this sort of sense of nostalgia, right? It still feels like, it feels authentic in some weird way. Even though it's created with AI, it actually feels more human, more vintage than, you just grabbing a mic and trying to get the same type of feeling. So right now, the way I'm doing it is I'm just writing something myself, then I record it, and I replace the vocal, and it'll sound like a female rapper, from the 90s. Which to me is like, that's a dream to me. It makes me way more creative.
I think there's so many people that would disagree with you. They would like hate this process. Like,
no, I mean, most people, I get it. Most people would just like to go to Splice and grab a vocal and just chop it on a track. For me, the idea, I think, of course, the idea of going through a process where you just put in a prompt and you have a whole record is ready to go, that's a little much. I think that maybe in the future we might go there. That sounds like a horror scenario to me.
I think the idea is also that AI is taking from somebody. Even though you're saying you're getting these 90s female like hip hop vocals, but it is taking from somebody. Do you feel that way or no?
Isn't that what the culture's always been about? We were just grabbing a kick from Splice, and then we or it would come from a drum machine that you didn't actually synthesize that kick.
But typically that person would get credited. Do you know what I mean? And it's almost like right now it's kind of like,
do you though? Like, do people make records with Splice? Do they credit the people that made the vocal sample on Splice? I don't think so. You just take it. You pay like a subscription,
right, and
then you just take it. No writers are there are amazing records out there, but I don't see them crediting the original writers of the loop, the vocal loop, or the synth loop on Splice. I think I'm people have sampled my records, and I see it as I'm honored. It's like, that's kind of where we come from. Look at Daft Punk. They've always been sampling records, and even back in the days, you can't always clear everything, but I always, when I take something from another record, I always clear that. I feel that's important to make sure you respect the original songwriters. So at some point there was a record that I put out that I cleared the snare. That was sampled from.
Really, yeah.
I try to be respectful with that, but I'm old school. At the same time, I feel there's going to be a new generation of producers that are not going to have the same background as me. And I could be out there like, oh, you're sampling all this stuff that's coming from a certain, it's sort of an unknown library, we don't know where it's coming from. But at the same time, we're all using the amen break, and we're not paying, the rightful owners of the creator of that drum loop. He passed away poor, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy. It's like,
right.
It's like people hating on NFTs, right? Like the blockchain and NFTs, it's like destroying the environment. But at the same time, I like sending someone something digitally, a piece of art that they can enjoy, put up on their TV, is probably going to be, it's going to be more environmentally friendly than, sending a giant package across the other end of the world in a private jet, But I think the thing is, you cannot. This is the one thing I try to stay away from. It's opinions on AI, it's politics, it's sports. I respect everyone's opinion. I think that's important to say. I think there's no wrong, there's no right. I mean, at the time I had a discussion with my mom. She was like going to the bank. She's like, oh, I need to, there's no person at the bank. I need to now do it digitally on the computer. I just want to have this little slip that I fill in with my pen, push it through the wall. And I'm like, but do you know who's at the other end of the wall? Which person is going to take? You have no idea. Go behind the computer. And now my mom's like, she's doing all this. She's making she's buying stuff on the internet.
Right.
She's into it. She's gambling on the internet. So I think
it's just changing mindset, is what you're saying.
It's change your mindset. And I think I'm a futurist, so I think the main thing is we shouldn't work harder. We should work smarter. I think the main thing is we're not going to stop it. So we could be negative, and I would say 99% of the comments when you mention the word AI is going to be negative. No one's going to be positive about it.
Sure.
It's going to be, we hate it. We hate the song. We hate this. We hate that. I'm like, at the same time, let's take a music video, right? You make a music video with AI. It takes a lot of creativity. It takes time. It takes input. The same as making music. And then there's like, oh, it's made with AI. It's trash. I'm like, well, let's look at it this way. You want the music to be for free, right? Because you're on Spotify. You're probably on a free subscription. You want to listen to my music for free. You want to watch the music video for free on YouTube. We got to figure out how to give all this stuff to you for free, and still have a private life. I could be on the set right now with 20 people doing my wardrobe, doing hair, and creating, sets, and then having we can.
Right.
But it's going to be tough because a lot of starting artists, I think it's going to be, especially for them, it's going to be a revolution, because they're going to be able to create things, to create a world that's living inside of their head that they normally wouldn't be able to afford, that would be for the elite. I think this will democratize the industry. People who don't have the money, the tools, the experience, or the backing from a giant label or big management will now be able to be super creative, to show the world what they're capable of. And it comes down now to, there are no technical limits anymore. It comes down to being creative. It's comes down to having a personality. It comes down to putting your heart into it. And I think that is probably actually what scares people, that now I really have to do something that comes from me, and I can't hide behind the technology anymore. I think that is a scary thing to think about, but that's the one thing I've learned. That's the one thing I needed to teach myself, because I've always been about the tech. I think once I needed to become a real person that people can connect to, that is the scariest thing I can do. And going back to when I had that conversation with my dad, writing a song for my dad's funeral was the scariest thing I've done. That song, I played it for 50 people. It was about my dad's life. It's about my in the end, the person that gave me life, the most, one of the two most important persons in my life. Writing that song, putting that song out, making a video for it. If you look it up, it's called The Artist Inside. That video consists of footage that I've shot since, I was born. I had a camera. I've always been, my love has always been music and film and art. That's the most personal, most scary thing I've done. After that, I made a song called Thousand Faces, which is 10 years after my dad's passing. I think doing stuff that is that personal, that's the scariest thing you can do. And I think we should kind of move away from all the technical talk. We should be talking about how can we make that connection with fans on a human level.
Yeah.
How can we give fans and the industry something that will give them hope? And I think also how can we make it more fair for young artists? Who don't have the means, sometimes they have to have three jobs, to get by, to make sure their family is fed. Maybe this is great for them. That's the way I'm thinking. It might not be great for me, but that's not what it's about. I think a lot of people are negative because they're afraid it's not going to benefit them. I think you have to look ahead of that. It might not benefit you, but it might benefit someone else. And look at it think one step ahead, figure out how it works, master it, become a master of it. I think that will take away the fear.
Yeah. When you look back 10 years in the past and, you launched Hexagon, your label, and it was kind of the beginning of this future house sound that was changing from big room EDM. And when you look back, you're celebrating 10 years, congrats, by the way. And you kind of look at all your artists and how they come up. And how do you see the sound of the label?
Yeah.
And your sound, how did it evolve in the last 10 years? How do you see it? Because I feel there were some, I don't know, would you say there were some rough patches throughout the years?
Yeah.
In the last 10 years?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was what was maybe some of the hardest times that you went through in the last 10 years?
With the label or for me?
For the label.
For the label.
Yeah. For the label and yourself, yeah. I don't know if it was aligned.
I think the one thing, you're right, you're a specialist and you're a music lover, you're a music head, So you will know the distinction between big room EDM, tech house, and future house. A lot of people are like, Don Diablo, future house, thus he is EDM. So I think that sometimes becomes a problem because when you get bigger, you start playing with all these massive DJs.
Right.
At some point, you're like, I'm one of them now, actually, right? That's crazy. But I don't see it that way. For me, I feel like I'm still left field. I'm still, I'm not doing that main stage EDM. I'm still, if you go dive into my catalog, I'm still trying to be different.
Right.
I'm still trying to go against the grain. I'm still trying to do something that feels artistically different from some of the music that's being played on a lot of the main stages. I am playing the main stage, so I have to find a middle way. Yeah.
Well, just for a little reference, I was DJing in Vegas, during the EDM boom, 2010 to 2013, and it was huge, obnoxious build-ups, dramatic, drops, super sauce synths.
This is why I don't play in Vegas. Honestly,
right? It was this very, and it became very bro-ish. Very fist pumpy.
Yeah.
So Future House was kind of the antithesis of this all. I remember the first track that kind of changed everything was Chami's Promises, which kind of changed everything and even created the label of Future House from his SoundCloud tags. And then there was Oliver Heldon, who basically kind of brought Future House to the mainstream with Gecko. And then you kind of brought this new approach, this kind of new energetic, festival energy to Future House. And it, happened with Anytime, and Cutting Shapes was probably the biggest example of that. More melodic, more funky grooves, minimal drops.
Well,
right?
to cut in there, the main thing for me was to try to figure out a sound that could work on the same stages that you just mentioned, that we would have the same energy of playing in front of 30, 40,000 people,
right?
But it would also work in a club. It would still feel intimate. So I think the idea of it is it has both the combination of it sounding futuristic and exciting from an innovation point of view, technically and musically, but at the same time it feels nostalgic. It kind of grabs back to the old school house.
Those gospel vocals a little bit, right?
Yeah. I think that's what really got me into it, and that's why I was interested again in making music and in creating this movement, right? I think that's the thing. My music has never been supported on the radio like a lot of my big peers, right? They've had a lot of support coming from the outside, from the industry, from the radio. That's never been the case for me. It's really been a grind, record by record by record. And if you're looking at my monthly listeners, on Spotify, it's around, I think I have about 2 million subs, right? These followers have been, it came from grinding, song by song by song. And I think that's a different path than when you have an actual, like a massive record that's supported all over the place and you're known for that one record.
Yeah.
This was really about a movement, about trying to create something that felt innovative. And I think at the beginning, when I started with spinning, I said to them like, hey guys, like when I had my first couple of big records, people started kind of copying and emulating my sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were sample packs, Diablo sounds, Hexagon house, all these things. People were like, is this from you? I was like, no, I don't want to do sample packs because I feel like that also degrades your artistry. Like, here's what I do, but it is in a package, just cook it up, and here's all the ingredients, do your own thing with it. I think it was more interesting for me to watch all these kids try to create the sound that I was making, but doing it differently.
Yeah.
I was watching these tutorials. I'm like, that's not the way I made it actually, but you did it very creatively, and actually you're doing it better than me. So I went to the label like, you guys are releasing records that sound like my records. That's not cool. The only answer I could have for that is like, let me start a platform, a label, and all these records that are sounding, within the same region of my music. Let's bundle it together. Let's create a movement, and that's what became, Hexagon. And
so you wanted control a little bit. You wanted to kind of control the movement a bit.
Well, that was the first time, essentially, that I got a little control over my career, over the sound, over others in a way. Before that, I was just floating. And I think that's what it became clear to people what Don Diablo was. And I think the one thing you're talking about your highs, right? That the high was at some point I was the #1 artist on 1001 Tracklist, and I was the #1 selling artist on Beatport, which meant, and this was really important to me, I felt accepted. Because it wasn't really about me playing a lot of shows or like having big records on the radio. I was supported by the DJs. Like all the the #1 most supported artist at that point, all my records got played all over the world by all these other DJs. I think that was massive for me. And then a lot of people came to the label and we started building artists. And I think this is where the low point comes, right? And this is, you don't really talk about this.
Well, before we get to the low part, I just want to say, even seeing like your music video for Anytime, right?
Yeah.
Like it was just all these cameos from all these, huge EDM DJs.
But it was also like very DIY. Like I edited that video on my laptop in the plane. So a lot of things that I did back then, I was just making my own artworks.
Mm-hmm.
I was just making my own sound, and I was making my own music videos. I was coming up with my own narrative. I was sewing my own clothes. Like I had a vision in my mind. Like the record sleeve should look like this. The video should look like that. I can implement it here. I make this record, and so I had this sort of 5-year vision that I rolled out with no management. No label.
Really?
Just me. Like a lot of people like, your team rocks, like I didn't have a team. It was just me. And I think that's what I wanted to take away for some of the other artists, like I wanted to make them feel like they were a part of something. There was a platform.
Right.
And I think, but at the same time, and this is time you don't really talk about, there isn't much loyalty. There is not much loyalty in the music industry, right? It really is a dog-eat-dog world, right? You would work with these artists, you would build them. And to be honest, I'm not about having people sign strangle contracts, because I've been taken advantage of, right? So the label's always been about, from the start, we give 50% to the artist, not the 18% that the other labels were doing, 50-50. I want to empower you.
Right.
Also, we're not giving you this strangle contract. We're giving you the freedom, but to understand that you're here through your own free will. But that also bit us in the ass a little bit, because at the end of the day, when someone holds a bigger sausage in front of an EDM producer, DJ, generally they are attracted to money, they're attracted to fame, they're attracted to bigger perspectives that go beyond loyalty and looking back at where you come from.
Right.
So a lot of these artists, they went out, like we get them from 100,000 streams to like 30 million streams, and then they would go to a major label, they would go to a competitor. A lot of the competitors actually looked at Hexagon. They would be like, oh, this is doing well in Hexagon. Boom, let's offer them 10, 20, 30K, strangle contract, maybe 1 or 2 shows at this one event. A lot of my competing labels would, sign artists from me like that. A lot of people in my label were like, Don, like just make them sign a strangle contract, give them less percentage, do this, do that. I'm like, at the end of the day, no, I'm.
How could you do that, right? After what you've been through.
Exactly. For me, is that, and at the end of the day, the one gratifying thing then for me to see was that usually when they did go to these other labels, they didn't have that guidance. Sometimes I would actually be mixing those records for my artists.
Right.
I would help them with the A&R to a point where almost be co-producing or something. Sometimes I was.
Yeah.
It would sound like my record. So
sometimes your generosity, and from what you learned at an early age, all of this like horrible experiences with the industry, and your generosity to some of these artists, they didn't realize they were taking advantage of it, or they didn't even know that. They didn't even acknowledge it sometimes.
yeah,
right?
I mean, I'm not a negative guy.
Right.
So I've had a lot of.
But that's just the reality of some of the situations, right?
That's it. I mean, I'm. This is why I don't really speak about it in interviews. I don't go ranting on my Twitter, like, hey, here's another guy that I built from scratch that I worked on for 4 or 5 years when he only had 12 streams, and all of a sudden he's signing with my colleague, a label of one of my colleagues, who just offered them a show to open up somewhere in Ibiza for them. I to me, it's like, I applaud. I'm happy. They come to me sometimes and like, what should I do? I'm like, do what makes you happy. I'm just here to spread happiness before I leave this planet. I'm here. I'm a servant. Like I'm trying to figure out how can I make as many people as happy if possible. And that's my main goal, like making music, doing shows. That's the only thing that gives me the energy. Like you're saying, I've slept maybe 6 hours in the last 4 days. But the fact that there are fans, they have letters, they have tattoos, they have flags, they have a story, they're human beings. That gives me so much energy. That goes beyond me feeling betrayed by another artist on my label that was like, oh, I got 3,000 euros more here. Let's go for this, for this opportunity right now. I think that's great. At the end of the day, I want you to be happy. I'm not about trying to keep people with me against their will. I think it's really about free will. It's really about, it gives me anxiety, the idea of to be responsible for other people. I think the beginning of the part is where it's interesting for me, when I can build someone, I can help them, I can guide them, I can be the chaperone, I can be the mentor. And at some point, I'm fine with letting go, because I don't want that responsibility for someone else's happiness, I'm going to give it my utmost, but at the end of the day, spread your wings, give it your best shot, and I'm always going to be here. I'm going to be, to give you advice.
Yeah. That's a great outlook. And, congratulations on 10 years of Hexagon. And I know you got to go to a show. I know you got a big show at the Pier 17. But,
yeah, we can add a few more minutes. Yeah,
okay.
Let's do it.
I want to make sure we talk about BeatSource exclusives. You're one of the first people to sign on to BeatSource exclusives. BeatSource is the first streaming service for DJs, and they just launched this program, the Exclusives program, which is featuring like never released remixes, edits, bootlegs from some of the biggest DJs, producers like yourself, and you're one of the first to participate in this.
Yeah.
So
I believe you weren't even going to talk about that. That's funny. I think the main thing is a lot of complaints I get sometimes from the fans. They're like, you're teasing a lot of music in your shows, you're teasing a lot of music on your socials that we never get to listen to. A lot of this has to do with copyrights. A lot of this has to do with, also, I want people to go to my show and have an exclusive experience. Because you're buying a ticket. I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to go in there like, oh, I'm just playing my biggest hits in the original versions.
Yeah.
And I'm just playing someone else's edits and bootlegs. I want to grind. I want you to go like, shit, I was on a Don Diablo show last week. It already completely changed the whole show. Insane, But at the same time, I want to be able to be, to provide for some of the DJs in the community some of my best, versions. I call them rehexes, because I don't really call them bootlegs or remixes, because I strip the record, I completely, make it into a new song, a new record, new chords. I make the production as if it's going to be my next single, So it takes there's 20 versions sometimes. I test it, I try, I go back. So it's not just a fleeing thing. For me, these are very much a part of who I am as an artist. So when I heard about this opportunity, having some of these records out there for other DJs to use, for fans to listen to in a more beefy way, I was like, this is exciting, So that's why I wanted to be one of the first.
You
to
have
join.
like remixes of Human League, Do You Want Me? Don't You Want Me? Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like you could never like release that shit.
No, in some cases I do, somebody like I've just cleared the Depeche Mode. I've done a Jamiroquai record.
Yeah.
Obviously, I cleared Justin Timberlake, Timbaland, Nelly Furtado. So a lot of these records I'm able to clear because of the position I'm in. But at the same time, I make these records for fun. Again, it comes back to being a hobby, to me being in the bedroom doing this stuff for fun. And I think it also shows the passion that I still have as a producer, as a DJ, as a musician, and the fun, of making music and doing these things. I love doing something and then seeing the reaction at a show. But sometimes I do forget to share it with the rest of the world because I feel I'm already on the next train.
Yeah.
I'm moving,
And there's even like remixes with Drake and Future, Jumpman. There's like all kinds of...
But yeah, to be honest, some of these beats are just beats, that I made for my own album or for my own project that I just need an acapella for, So they might actually still come out as a Don Diablo original. But yeah, right now they're just there for the DJs, for the community, for the fans to use, to enjoy, and to smash the crowd with.
So you have like 10 tracks available on BeatSource exclusives, but you're going to post more. You're going to like submit more?
That's very likely. You never know with me, I'm a little bit all over the place. So I think, I give it my utmost with everything that I do. I'm just very critical. I want all of these to be at the highest quality, So as long as it's humanly possible for me to give my best shot, there's going to be more. There will be more. So there's a lot more in the treasure chest.
So with your New York show coming up, right? You're going to perform in a couple of hours, and you're preparing.
In 90 minutes actually.
90 minutes.
So I think we have to round it up. I could talk in hours for you, honestly. Yeah.
No.
With you.
I appreciate you coming here and making the time for us.
Yeah, of course.
And
thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you at the show. I'm going to stop through.
Yes.
And man, I want to see what you have any exclusives that you're going to drop tonight. This is going to come out later. So you have any exclusives that we're looking forward to?
Oh, I don't know, like you cut this out or not, but I did a record with A$AP Ferg. I did a record with In It Raw. Did the Stephanie record, obviously, with Clooney. So there's a lot of like hip hop influence stuff that I'm gonna play.
Nice.
I've got a record which I think like is like sort of a Coachella end of the night type of record, like end of the festival. Like it's an indie anthem. Like I'm very inspired by bands like MGMT, like all these sort of like imaginative, creative, emo. Electronic type bands. So there's a bunch of that stuff. I'm going to be playing a lot of new versions of Don Diablo classics that I've made over the last 2 weeks.
Great.
So I'm just very excited. This keeps me excited because I just don't want to always play the same records,
Mm-hmm. Well, Don Diablo, thank you for coming through on the R.O.A.D podcast.
The devil works hard, but the DJ works harder. Remember that.
Yeah. Appreciate you coming through, man. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. And thank you for listening.
Yeah.
If you want to watch more episodes from R.O.A.D Podcast, click either links on the left or the right. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page and get updated on new uploads throughout the week. Peace.